So, all these testimonies I heard, I don't know if they're doing it now, but I think one of the coolest testimonies in the world would have been of somebody who had very similar psychology uh, throughout their life that occurred. And see, music is not necessarily the healer, it's God. And there is a great deal of psychology involved. And music is a large contribution and helpful in many ways. However, we'll get into the details of that a little bit later. So I never did get to have anything but like a small demo of those songs. And when I was here, because I live in Ohio and I don't live in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, I couldn't just go and knock on the door where those songs last were known to be. And unfortunately, what I've realized is most people are assholes, especially when you're on the phone and it's like they know your circumstances. It's almost like you don't want them to be, but they are different when you're nose to nose in some way. I hate that. I'm glad in some ways. So here's what I did. One of my favorite songs is The Sender, and it never turned out the way that I wanted it to. Some of it better, some of it not. So I redid it a second time. I like it. It didn't turn out the way that in my brain. Some of the songs didn't turn out the way that I know that they could turn out. They did turn out well, and I do listen to them all the time. That's why I redo some of the songs. It's like they have different versions. So what could I do to make this better for me? Or how about if I make a fast version? Maybe that's kind of what's going on in me. So I record it, I made a fast version with words, and then I never forgot about my desire to do at least one song similar, not identical, similar to Surfing with the Alien. Okay? Which means, drums, bass, like a rock song minus words. So what I did is I took the melody and I turned it into guitar. Like Always With You, Always With Me kind of thing, but it's a little bit faster, so the combination of the two made one. And here's the thing, so now I have the Sender, the slow version, and then a second slow version, and then I have a fast version with the words. And then I came into this, why not make it an instrumental, and I did that, and here is some of it for now. So here's the thing, check this out. So whenever I hear that, I see the visuals in my head, and they are very pleasurable, and in my honest opinion, it's the greatest show in the world. There is nowhere else that mentality would rather be than present. When you get into psychology and consideration, not that that is where God is limited, that would be foolish to say, but that helps a human being immensely. When people speak, they speak in a manner that says that they want to achieve what they want to achieve. And my personality is, I don't really want to step on anybody's toes. And I don't want to take advantage of other people if I can stay away from it. I don't want to be that person. I realized that I won't use names, but I am not like a lot of these different personalities, that it is very obvious that they are users and abusers and manipulators. In the Christian community, there are many manipulators. If you see them on a stage speaking, they want an addition. They want to expand their church. They want to do what they want, add a new addition to their home. They want a second car. They want to get their wife a package of some sort for a vacation getaway. I wanted to be inspired to live and do great and marvelous things. And I didn't think that doing music would limit me to a bedroom and playing bar rooms. Just know this, as an entertainer in a bar room, you're looking around, that's a lot of beers constantly going up and down. Do you think if there was an enemy, something would want me seeing that? and in partaking in it, because it wants to keep me distant from a much higher and fuller potential. The way that people talk in combination with God, ministry, and musical endeavors, you would think that literally in this pathetic world, it would be like taking a butter across a cake. Butter knife. So easy. And much could be done. And you realize, how big is the planet? And this is what people don't like. You realize as your psychological becomes more in tune, and this is way before this stuff. This is way before me making my steps to transition. Once you're self-employed, you realize a lot of things, and one of the things is that people on the radio are not that superior, and they are not more worthy of praise than an elephant who just took a dump and forgot to lift his tail. Amen. That's a good little elephant. Yes, it is. You're a newie, huh? Just born today. I decided to try to combine the first two album recordings with the recent. Since 2019, I tried different things, because one thing, in all honesty, that I did not like, minus the imperfections, which also brought me closer to loving myself, by the way. So when people hear imperfections, they may see or hear a joke. It might bring laughter to them, and that's okay, because I can laugh too at those imperfections. So I'm so grateful I have that strength, because if I'm not careful, if I wouldn't have been careful, it would have brought me into a puddle of tears and even a great state of depression, because some of those imperfections I tried to straighten out and I couldn't. And whether it's editing imperfections, which there is quite a few, or if it's the struggle in trying to maintain a healthy psychology to keep that personality and deliver that and blend it in a punch-in, or, oh, my fingers hurt and I'm trying to get the punch-in and I can't. So when people hear the imperfection, they don't see the grooves in your fingers and the skin that's just peeling and shredding from your fingertips. And they don't see how sore and the blisters that form. You know, when it comes to singing, they might not be aware, but you're getting up out of bed at midnight or after midnight before 3 o'clock in the morning so you can have a quiet time here in the apartment building to grab some singing while you're living with the stress of, I don't want to upset anybody while I'm doing this. If they can hear me next door, I don't know. I hope not. And meanwhile, you're trying to not just stay in that self-defense, so you're aware mode. I'm aware of my surroundings, but you're also trying to maintain, I'm happy when I'm recording a happy, or I don't want to get too sad when I'm trying to deliver a sad song. I still want to kind of keep some happy spirit to it. For me, I do. I'm not saying that's the way for anyone to go. I know that when some people sing power ballads and it's really heart-wrenching, I don't want to listen to songs like that by me on a regular basis, so I try to stay friendly and upbeat when I do it. Other people might not like it. I really don't care. And I want to be able to listen to a fast song and a slow song without it feeling like some of the thoughts that I used to have when listening to people sing. And it's not that that's a bad thing, but it was for me. And especially dealing with a great state of psychological depression that I had, that was always there. And so I kept all that in mind, and I wanted to stay away from it when I did a lot of my music. And I think I did great. A few more yet. The one video I never made that I would love to see a video production to. Cold Winter Storm. I turned it into an instrumental. And if I would have had my way, and I would have had a different budget, I only need a little bit more. And if I would have understood waterproof technology and stuff, I would have loved to make a snow. But there's a lot involved, including being careful, you know, in the weather conditions, and having the technology that it's not going to get ruined from the cold or from the wet. Drop it in the snow or something, you know. So I didn't make the video, plus I was working on my other music endeavors. But every time I hear this is one of my favorite songs. And though not inspired specifically by a person, It was in the way that they took approaches, which was Kurt Cobain, Nirvana, the way that they write. And that's the songs in my observation of, reading the lyrics and listening to their music and stuff like that. Like the band Nirvana, by the time it came out with In Bloom and Lithium and stuff like that, and thereafter, that Nirvana, with David Grohl and Kurt Cobain and I can't think of the bassist's name. I don't remember. Oh, gee. If I heard it, I would know it. But I did not like that band at first. And it wasn't about them personally. I'm so musiced out by that time because there's nothing else for me to really do in this lifetime. I am bored. The job thing isn't working. The dating other people and the sex thing is freaking not working. And the American culture way of going about things. When I walk the streets or something out in a neighborhood, I'm the only one walking in the neighborhood a majority of the time. And I realize that, and it kind of spooks me because I remember times different. That's why. Okay? And I didn't know what happened as I go through life. It's like hanging out on the circuit. All of a sudden, nobody's hanging out no more. I'm hanging out. A lot of things like that. With that being said, I just didn't like Nirvana at first. And all it took was for me to hang out with some teenagers. At the time, I was in my 20s. And they had that look to them with the colored hair and, the clothing that they wore and stuff. And it's not the same thing as like glam bands coming across with the sex appeal and the kind of personalities that's friendly and stuff. It is, as anybody has ever seen Nirvana videos and stuff like that. And in time, what's really weird is because your brain will show you after going through years of psychological study and taking the transitional journey that I've done, the steps, that at some point when Kurt Cobain turns his head when singing a song, you become in an agreement that he is just as sexy of a human being as anybody that you've ever seen sexy before in your life. So please don't be upset that I said that. I don't mean it in a perverse way. I was shocked, and I am very much in agreement with it. It's not like it was forced for me to believe this. But what appeared once as a slob of some form versus, glamoury ended up being attractive, which was surprising to me. And I believe that a lot of that is time in listening, time in reading their lyrics, time of hearing of tragedy, whether real or not. And I hope not. When it came to songwriting and stuff, and the hope to play guitar, Kurt Cobain was really the one overall and listening to Nirvana music. So all people involved in the musical process of making those recordings. So anyway, Cold War in a Storm, sort of inspired by the band Nirvana's way of writing, recording songs. And Harvest Freedom, which is also one of my favorite songs. I wish I would have recorded this with a 12-string, I say, and I will always say that is one of my greater disappointments. Because I hear the fullness of a 12-string or many acoustic guitars strumming at once. Because I think this is actually 6 tracks of acoustic brought into one so I could capture the fullness that I was hoping to capture with a 12-string. And it has helped me visually in many ways to understand that when I see this in a live performance in my brain, it's more of somebody who's very serious, intimate, passionate, and has more than we're a tough rock and roll band existence. In my opinion, it's somebody that you might want to listen to. Okay. You might actually learn something when listening to their music. Not necessarily that song specifically. Not at all. And here's the thing. If you've ever stood or sat beside someone who my situation, I don't know anything about it, except for I like to watch and hear. And it's amazing if you are into music at all. My grandmother, Gladys, worship leader. My mother, Barbara Ann. Okay. Mom, they named a song after you. I remember telling her that in Jonestown. Did I say, Mom, why did they name a song after you? Or do you know they did that? You know, because as I was looking at the Beach Boys, my brother loved the Beach Boys. I think lots of people loved the Beach Boys back in that time especially. But very good music, especially if you love cars and you love beautiful weather and beautiful people, you know, beautiful mindset, you know. I'm glad that the Beach Boys were a part of my household when I realized what could have been in my household in many ways, a part of my life, because there was different times in my life that I listened to the Beach Boys myself, and it breathed life into me where other things were not breathing life into me because of my love for a lot of the stuff that they talk about. And I love the quartet-y kind of, I don't know what they call themselves like that, you know, the group of singers. So here's the thing, check this out. I did not use a 12th string for a large portion of it. I was having problems even getting any of my music recorded, let alone a roof over my head. And then to get quality stuff on top of that, and to be in a peaceful environment where I'm not disturbing other people. You see, it's almost like you feel, I don't really want to be focused so much on music as much as taking care of myself, because if I can't take care of myself, how am I going to stick to doing music? So I understand more than people give credit. If you're going to be doing music, the kind of environment you need to live in. Okay? Which is, you don't want somebody else stepping on your property telling you that you're either interfering with them or they're telling you what to do, you know, and a lot of other things. It's kind of challenging. But it's like, I used to tell people if I did music the way I wanted to, it'd be very expensive in a monetary world. Very expensive. I think sometimes if I were to do it politely for myself, the truth of the matter is I would need God's love, because there is no other way of doing it. The world is not giving in any way that you says I can both work, have money, and then do the things I want to do musically. And I can't believe how much bullshit is in the world about, well, do a little bit on the side, do a little bit when you get home from work, do a little bit. Do you know how I do stuff like this? All day long, from the time I wake up until I go to bed, eating and shitting in between, and making food again and again and again. It's fucking sickening how much of the real shit people leave out. If you're not careful and don't have a healthy psychology, you'll turn into a pile of poop. It's gross. And I understand my personality, or what's going on inside my head that is not of me. To do that with people day in and day out, you think the cops would show up once or twice? Once? Twice? 3 times a lady, and I really love you. My mom used to love Lionel Richie. And there was one that I remember that Lionel Richie did, and I can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but I would recognize it if I saw the title. It's one word, I think. And it was when he did Dancing on the Ceiling. Oh, what a feel. That's when I started to like Lionel Richie. I told my mom, guess what? I just saw Lionel Richie on TV, and I think I'm starting to like him now, you know, a lot more, you know, because she listened to him all the time at the time. And then he had We Are the World, you know, and Jesus Christ, you know. And so music, listening to all kinds of music in our household, you know. And because my mom was who she was, she liked a lot of the different stuff that I did not have in my collection of music. The piano. My mom, my grandmother. Is it Miss Long? Because I used to say that. Is it Miss Long or Mrs. Long? She most likely would have been my music teacher my whole life in school. I used to think, isn't that cool? There was only 2 people that I knew like that. She went through elementary school, then went to junior high school. I don't know if she went to high school then after that. I learned a lot. Even if I didn't seem like I was as interested as maybe some of the other kids, I most certainly love music, and I learned a lot, and I still to this day do the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I still relate to the instruments that I learned and the singing stuff that she taught when being in the choir, you know. I don't have no regrets, but if I had gone through because I had to go to school specifically, I would definitely be more involved in music class and wanting to learn more because I really, really love music. I think I learned enough there, and it has been helpful because the rest of it was life's a dance, you learn as you go. I did, for those 2 weeks to stand, it reminds me, when I did the choir part, it reminds me of the times that I was in a choir. I had a hard time not feeling kind of goofy about being in the choir, even though I come from like a quartet family. If it's one thing that I know for sure is I was extremely bashful in certain circumstances. And even being in a choir, I'd feel good if I could kind of blend in with others. The problem is I was exceptionally tall in comparison to most people. So therefore, I'm the one with my head standing out of the choir crowd. And I did learn, I think it was even through Mrs. Long, about how some of the kids, they would stand more like in the back. I learned it from someone. I was talking to somebody and they said, if you feel uncomfortable about it, why don't you can kind of like stand more in the back without being on a step or something like a high rise or something, or a lower platform or something, because that's how like humiliating it was to me. That it was like if I were out there looking up at the stage, I would be the one that's really tall, you know, in comparison to everybody else, and I didn't really want all the attention. And she was the one who called me more to be up front and said that I should maybe reconsider about being more of the, I don't know what they call it in choirs, you know, more of the lead kind of part. And I was really nervous about that. I think of times with Mrs. Long with one-on-one, maybe after school, we're talking by the piano. I never forgot that day, especially the one conversation that we had, several of them, throughout the years of her teaching me, and sitting with my mom, who was a little bit different than sitting with my grandmother, Gladys. We'll not go into the details, but I used to love the feeling I would have, and I would usually be sitting there with all of the piano players that I've ever witnessed in all. I love to listen to people play piano. So I used to say often throughout life, it would be nice if I had met, you know, other people who played instruments and stuff, and one of those instruments were pianos. I had a tendency of meeting lots of guitar players, hardly ever bass players. I met lots of drummers. And to me, the drummers, there seems to be more drummers than there is of any other. Definitely the electric guitar and drummers seem to be all over the place. When you start getting more into other specialty instruments, like even the bass is what I would perceive it, it seems like it's a lot less. And also what I realized is the psychological connectivity. Do we have similar interest? Now here's the thing, check this out. In making this album full within a time frame, because I wanted to be done, this is now almost 5 years, and it is almost done. It is done. I have to wait to have my final observation and burn my final master. So I still have like maybe a day or two of just making sure I want to finalize it. It's done, but I want to make sure that I get away from it for a while. And then as I listen to it, can I finalize it and have peace with it? I took the section out of the choir because of my love for when somebody plays a melody note. And even the visual, not even of myself, but anybody singing with them as they're teaching them like vocal lessons. I think that mental is close from my witnessing, seeing a newborn child be born, seeing kittens be born, seeing a calf be born in a field. It seems to be a very, I don't know, it's more, what would be the right terminology? What happens with my brain is more a moment in time that is not like the majority of moments that you'll witness as you go through life. Okay. It kind of turned out goofy a little bit with my EQing. I'm not too good at it. Not to mention I hate S's and T's a lot. So I try to make them timid, and sometimes it's overdone. One more time. So in your mind, believe now is the time. Unveil your heart. There's no need to hide. Always remain true and grace to you. You're not alone. No need to cry. God loves us all. Fill your heart. We are all one. Nearing, climbing to victory. Hallelujah. That's it. I did the best I could while I sat here in my studio, and every time I turned on YouTube or went on to Facebook, whatever's assigned to my head tried to drill into my head that Sony and all the big major Disneyland type productions are making way with evidently my ideas that were right here in this studio. What do you think of that? Imagine every time you're working on projects, something screaming through your mouth to the point that they can stop you almost, if not paralyzed in a physical sense. They can hold you and they can just start speaking through you, or even worse, screaming through your own mouth. Yet, we were never taught this. We were taught ridiculous shit like demonic possession. And then you find out technology, CB radio, ham radio, satellite. NASA is a bunch of fucking bullshitters. Why the hell would anybody want to lie to masses of fucking people? No wonder the fucking cowards moved their shop to a different country. If I bullshitted people for years and years and years, I'd be scared shitless, knowing that someday, somehow, somebody's gonna figure that shit out. There's not just emptiness out there. There's a hell of a lot more than that. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. Did I do that?